Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Newton 9/11 Memorial Ceremony. This is the 21st year since 9/11 occurred on September 11, 2001. This is the 12th year which we have had our ceremony at this location after this memorial was dedicated in 2012. I'm sorry, forgive my math, that would actually make it the 11th. We'd like to welcome the Honor Guard from the Newton Fire Department, the Newton Police Department, and the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department, which are currently posting the colors. If Rabbi Moshe Lieberman would please approach the podium to give the invocation. Rabbi Lieberman is the Newton Police Chaplain.
Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, we stand before you in prayer. We come together in unity and friendship to honor the September 11, 2001 victims. That fateful day remains in our hearts and minds. We remember those who died in the attacks and venerate the heroism of the firefighters and police officers who lost their lives while saving the lives of others. Av HaRachamim, our Father of compassion, we beseech you, shelter the souls of the dead, the graceful shadow of your wings. Give strength and comfort to the survivors to find fulfillment. Give courage to those who fight terror and protect the innocent from danger. Avinu Shevashamayim, our Father in heaven, who created all people in his image, provide wisdom to the leaders of the world to be guided with righteousness and peace. Teach us to revere the sanctity of life and reject the evil of terror, and recognize the danger of a world filled with violence. Help us honor the words of the prophet Malachi. Do we not all have one Father? Did not one God create us? We implore you, God of mercy, give us the strength and perseverance to stay true to our moral bearings. Be with us and direct us as we strive to make this world kinder and gentler. Fulfill our hopes and listen to our prayers for Mashiach, a world of justice, compassion, and peace. Amen.
If Patrick Devlin could please approach the podium to perform the national anthem. Patrick is a sophomore at Newton North High School.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and our hope of the brave?
If Lucas Johnson could please approach the podium to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Lucas is the grandson of the Newton 9/11 Memorial co-founder, Ginny Gardner.
I I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republics of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now retire the colors. President John F. Kennedy once said, "The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And the one path we shall never choose is a path of surrender or submission." For over 2 centuries, our nation was virtually isolated from attack from abroad. The continental United States had not been attacked since 1916, when terrorists crossed the border from Mexico into New Mexico and murdered dozens of Americans. We were shielded by oceans. We were shielded by a large landmass. However, that shield was penetrated. That shield was disrupted forever when on September 11th, 2001, terrorists hijacked several planes and they crashed them into 2 of our largest buildings, the Pentagon, and luckily, the individuals, the heroes of Flight 93, were able to prevent further terrorism from being inflicted on our nation's capital. Nevertheless, these people, with the exception of the Pentagon, nearly 90% of them were civilians. They were American civilians. And this was an unprecedented assault on civilians. Prior to that, in all too many wars, so many of our soldiers, sailors, and Marines were killed. This was different. This was very different. Nearly 2,800 of our citizens were killed on 9/11. For their memory and the memory of those military personnel who were killed at the Pentagon, we erected this memorial which you see before you. This memorial was erected over a decade ago, and it is made from solid granite. It is shaped like the Pentagon. It has the 2 Roman numerals 9/11. You'll also notice that everything is engraved within the granite. We chose granite because granite lasts forever. Long after the plaques that are of bronze and copper have dissipated, have been tarnished, 200, 300, 400 years from now, this memorial will stand the test of time. Long after this building of brick has decayed into dust, that memorial will stay here. And it's very simple. As you walk up it, you will know and understand fully what happened here, even if you don't know the story. Within 2 minutes, you will know what happened here. And that is that our country was attacked on that day a long, long time ago. Queen Elizabeth, who recently died, on the day after September 11th, on September 12th, she made a rare phone call to President George Bush, and she offered him her support and her sympathy, her empathy, mostly because, as she articulated to him, the biggest shock of her life, the biggest trial of her life was not when she was queen, but it occurred when she was a teenager, a late teenager in London. And when all around her, day after day, she experienced the London Blitz, the Blitz upon London by the enemies of the country. And day after day, she witnessed, as did many Londoners, the carnage, the death, the destruction of hundreds, if not thousands, of their citizens. And she wanted to express that sympathy, that solidarity with our country, so much that she actually had the Palace Guard perform a national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, rather than as customary. And that was the first time that had been done ever. But nevertheless, as time goes on, it's evident to us that the memory hasn't faded, for those from our community who were killed on that day. The crowds still come. You are here today, and we are very grateful that you are here today. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we will be having the same ceremony. Long after the founders have resorted to the retirement home, long after we are gone, our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will perform the duties, the ceremony that we are today doing it now. 8 of our citizens were murdered on that day. They are our friends, they are our neighbors, they are our coaches, they are our classmates. None of them were in the military, none of them were combatants. They were innocent American civilians. They were Christians, they were Jews, they were Muslims. And let us today acknowledge and remember how they died, when they died, where they died. And let us follow that statement which President Kennedy articulated to us, which I read at the outset, as we remember each and every one of them with everlasting love. I'd like at this time to introduce the Mayor of Newton, the Honorable Ruth Ann Fuller.
Tom, thank you for your wonderful words, and Rabbi Lieberman, a wonderful invocation. And to our 3 honor guards, the Newton Fire Department Honor Guard, the Newton Police Department Honor Guard, and the Middlesex Sheriff Honor Guard, thank you all for being here with us. Today we come together with heavy hearts to remember the nearly 3,000 beautiful lives, civilian lives, lost in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, 21 years after a morning of terror that we can never forget and that we must always remember. We come together with grateful hearts to thank the heroes of the day, hundreds of heroes that day, the courageous firefighters, police officers, emergency medical personnel, and also the ordinary people who were so extraordinary, such as Wells Crowther, 24 years old, a BC alumnus, an equities trader working in the South Tower, a man wearing a red bandana, who all together on September 11th, 2001, ran selflessly towards the crumbling towers, towards the flames, towards the horror, to save the lives of strangers while risking their own. We come together united to hold close in our hearts and to pray for the families shattered on that morning, including those here in Newton, the Bavises, the Hackles, the Humbers, the Jacobs, the Meltzers, the Rosses, the Sallys, the Toyans, and so many others touched personally. Families who lost children and grandchildren, parents and step-parents, siblings, relatives, and unborn babies. I'm joined here today by Fire Chief Greg Gentile. Thank you for hosting us, Chief Gentile. And Police Chief John Carmichael. By Congressman and Newton resident Jake Auchincloss. By District Attorney Marion Ryan. By our State Senator Cindy Cream, our State Representative Ruth Balzer, our Governor Councilor Marilyn Devaney, our President Emeritus of the City Council, Lyle Baker, City Councilor Mark Laredio, Julia Malachy, Pam Wright, Tariq Lucas, School Committee Member Kathy Shields. Speaking for all of us, I want to thank the 9/11 Memorial Committee Chair, Sandy Young, the architect, Mark Sangiolo, and all the committee members for making sure we never forget this day and for creating this very special permanent granite memorial in our city. As we reflect on September 11th, 2001, as we of a certain age, which I am one of, viscerally recall the tragedy and the terror, we also mark this day by recollecting the way we reached out to one another in friendship and care in the weeks and months that followed. As one nation, as one city, we mourned together the people we lost. People of all ages, all ethnicities, all religions, all walks of life. We reached past our differences amid the shared and intense love for our country and for our fellow human beings. And on this anniversary, at a time when in our nation, when the voices of division are too often amplified, let us summon our shared humanity and move forward knitted together by our common values, and every day live up to our better selves in honor of the sacrifice of those heroes we lost, and to buoy the families of those who still mourn. In closing, may God forever bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Please welcome our district congressman, the Honorable Jay Auchincloss of Newton.
Today we commemorate 21 years since our way of life came under assault in an attack so horrifying that the images and the sounds are forever seared into our collective memory. So much about the world has changed in 2 decades. The country I serve in Congress is different than the one I was covering as the editor-in-chief of the Day Middle School Daytime on that horrible day. I remember so well that day and week because it was the first time in my young life I had seen all the adults in my life afraid. Yet despite all these changes in the last 21 years, and there is much to debate about what has been good and what has been bad, let us now together reach back to September 11th, 2001. Let us remember the innocent lives cut short in New York, Pennsylvania, and Northern Virginia, of first responders, of passengers. Their families grieve still, and we do our best to offer comfort in community. Let us honor the service members, many of them children themselves on that day in September, who would go on to fight and die in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And let us recall in our hearts and minds the solidarity we felt as Americans in the aftermath of the worst attack on our homeland since Pearl Harbor. In solidarity today, we honor lives lost, and we commit ourselves to freedom and democracy in their memory.
Please welcome Newton Police Chief John Carmichael.
Good evening, everybody. I'm honored that I was asked to speak tonight. And as I started to write a little speech. And as I started to do that, I realized that I didn't need to do that, because anything that I need to say, I can say from the heart. One thing that I'm very impressed by tonight is, and I saw a group of young kids over here somewhere. I know they're here somewhere still. And I find that very compelling, because they probably were not alive when 9/11 happened, but they're here tonight. We always say that we'll never forget. And I think for me, coming here tonight and seeing them here is a very special thing, because there's another generation that will never forget. To our first responders, if you ask any of them, they will tell you that our job is bouts of boredom followed by emergency situations, chaos, and a lot of different things that we deal with. But that day, 9/11, when all of those different attacks happened, what's so amazing about it is that all of those first responders, the police officers, the firefighters, the emergency medical services personnel, even civilians, without hesitation, ran into those buildings to save our fellow human beings. And it's an incredible thing. I remember after that happened, how many people would come up and thank me for what I do. We started to see a lot of different things happen where you would see American flags tied to someone's vehicle. And this is an incredible display here tonight. There was a sense of unity that came after 9/11. And I would say this, that as those people were thanking me because of this incredible tragedy that happened in our country, I'd like to remind everybody that it means a lot when you thank a first responder every day, every opportunity that you can. Because more tragedy will happen, more incidents will happen, and again, without hesitation, they will be the ones that will go in and risk their lives and sacrifice everything for somebody else. I also want to thank my fellow military people who answered the call after 9/11. The first responders were there that day, but our military and our service members took care of business after that. Many of them died for that flag right there. I would just say in closing that the spirit of America was definitely harmed that day. But we worked through it. People were together. People were unified. Back then, it didn't matter what your background was, where you came from, what your heritage is. It was only that we were all Americans, and we all came together to support each other. So thank you for being here tonight, and I appreciate the honor of being before everybody, and especially my fellow first responders. Thank you very much.
Please welcome the Director of Newton Veteran Services, Seth Bai.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and to all our veterans from across the 13 villages of Newton and our Commonwealth. Webster's dictionary defines patriot as one who loves their country and supports its authority and interests. On this day, 21 years ago, our country was turned upside down when a plane crashed into one of the World Trade Center towers in New York City. At first, people just thought it was an accident. Then the second plane crashed into the other tower. Then a third plane crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Finally, a fourth plane crashed into Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I think everyone here today can remember exactly what they were doing at the time of the attacks. Our country has bonded together since that day, and for months after, we have stood together. The attacks of September 11th were intended to break our spirit. Instead, we have emerged stronger and more unified. We feel renewed devotion to the principles of political, economic, and religious freedom, the rule of law, and the respect of human life. We are more determined now than ever to live our lives in freedom. We have the American diplomatic mission around the world to create a more secure, democratic, and prosperous world. Our military, your United States military, stands and will continue to stand for our country and defend our freedom. John F. Kennedy said during his inauguration, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and success of liberty." The date September 11th has many meanings, but it is also known as Patriot Day and National Day of Service and Remembrance. Remember the 3,000 lives that were lost that day in 2001, and the thousands more who have died defending our freedom overseas, including the 4 Americans who died on September 11th, 2012, U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens, Foreign Affairs Officer Sean Smith, security agents, and the previous Navy SEALs Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods. That day and every anniversary after that should remind us of a day that shook the United States out of complacency and made us realize that we are not completely immune to the hardships that are around this world. I will leave you with one more fact. The One World Trade Center is the main skyscraper that is built at the site of the September 11th attacks in New York City. This building is exactly 1,776 feet tall. How fitting for a number which represents our freedom to be standing at that site. To all the patriots in the audience, our veterans, our amazing friends throughout the 13 villages of Newton, thank you. Thank you for stopping in and remembering the tragedy of 9/11. And remember that this nation will not bend, and we are stronger today than ever. Thank you, and God bless America. People to JFK.
Please welcome the founder of the Newton 9/11 Memorial, Sandy Young.
I'll be very brief. I just want to thank every single one of you that is here today. This is a somber occasion that we mark annually, and I want to thank my committee and the city for pulling the ceremony together again. Why commemorate our 8 Newton neighbors who were killed 21 years ago? Why? It is good to remember the deceased, and it is important to remember that the evil 9/11 attacks were on all of us. So we pay our heartfelt respects to surviving family members, and we thank our first responders for the difficult work that they do every day to keep us safe. To preserve the meaning of 9/11, next year, the Memorial Committee will be awarding 3 college scholarships to Newton High School seniors. Details are in today's program and on our 9/11 website. The awarding of scholarships are made possible by all of our generous donors. In conclusion, I want to recognize one of those donors. Unfortunately, she's not here today, an athletic one. I'm pleased to present this plaque to Stephanie Kushner, who successfully ran the 2022 Boston Marathon to raise money for the memorial. Her training, dedication, and race day grit earned significant funds for us. Thank you, Stephanie, for your service. And this is the plaque. Thank you.
Family members of the Newton victims of September 11, 2001, and Newton 9/11 committee members will now read the memorial text.
The following quote is from former Mayor Seti Warren. I am proud that citizens came together to build this memorial. Let us use it to remember those from Newton lost on that devastating September day. Let us also use this memorial to remind ourselves that we must do all we can every day to preserve America's greatness, its traditions of liberty, justice, and opportunity in a peaceful world.
On September 11th, 2001, we remember with heavy hearts terrorist attacks that killed 3,000 innocent men, women, and children in New York City, the Pentagon, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The people of Newton built this memorial in 2012 to honor those neighbors that we lost, those that served that day and thereafter.
At approximately 7 a.m., 3 terrorists leave the Park Inn in Newton to board the American Airlines Flight 11 in Boston. At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 crashes into the World Trade Center North Tower.
At 9:03 a.m.,
United Airlines Flight 175 crashes into the World Trade Center South Tower. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon. At 9:58 a.m., the South Tower collapses.
At 10:03 a.m., United Flight 93 crashes into Pennsylvania. Passengers and crew launch a daring counterattack against their four attackers. Minutes into the counterattack, the plane crashes into a remote field and thereby spares an intended target, likely the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower collapses.
The heroic rescue efforts on September 11th came at a great cost. More than 400 rescuers died. 343 were New York City firefighters, and 3 were emergency medical technicians.
37 Port Authority police officers were killed, as were 23 officers from the New York City Police Department.
On November 10th, 2001, President George W. Bush said the following in a speech before the United Nations General Assembly. Time is passing, yet for the United States of America, there will be no forgetting September 11th. We will remember every rescuer who died in honor. We will remember every family that lives in grief. We will remember the fire and ash, the last phone calls, the funerals of the children.
Today, we remember in particular our Newton neighbors who perished on the flights and in the towers. These men and women live in our hearts, in our minds.
Mark Bavis, age 31, having played 4 years on Boston University's ice hockey team. Mark was entering his second season as an amateur scout for the Los Angeles Kings when he died on United Airlines Flight 175.
Hi, everyone. I know Paige would first want me to thank first responders, fire, police, and of course all the veterans who gallantly went to the rescue of this great country of ours after what was 9/11. Paige was on American Flight 11, and she was on her way to California. Paige was my father's wife, Alan Hackle. I considered Paige a big sister versus a stepmother figure. We were close in age, and she was very special to me in that way. Paige was traveling there along with her best friend, Ruth McCord Clifford, and Ruth's 4-year-old daughter, Juliana. Paige was Paige's godchild. Paige was a giver. She was going out there to continue her work, giving back to the community. We miss her very much. Thank you.
I'm speaking for Jordan Humber. He couldn't be here tonight. For his father, Nicholas Humber, age 60, with a degree in mechanical engineering from Rensselaer and a master's from Wharton. Nicholas joined the newly created EPA in 1971 and co-founded the National Waste to Energy and Recycling programs. His work focused on wind-generated energy, fuel cell technology, and sustainability. He died on Flight 11.
Aaron Jacobs, age 27. Aaron worked with my friend Stu Meltzer, whose brother you'll hear from in just a moment, at Cantor Fitzgerald in the North Tower of the World Trade Center. He loved New York as he jogged through Central Park, tasted its ethnic restaurants, and taught skills to the needy. Aaron traveled widely, and he and his fiancée thought they might honeymoon on an African safari.
Thank you all for coming today. Stu was 32 years old when he passed. He was fortunate enough to get a call off to his wife explaining that something horrible had happened and he wasn't going to make it, and to please take care of the children, and he loved her. He was a tremendous sports fan of all Boston sports. What he would have given to see the sports run that we went on with all the World Series, Super Bowls, etc. He left behind his wife, Lisa, and his 2 children, and they're just like him. A fitting tribute. Thank you.
Good evening. You know, every year that I come here, I always have something to say, because I think it's very important that you know something about my brother, his family, and I just think there is still continuity. Of course, we miss Richard every single day. Richard was age 58 years old. He died on American's Flight 11. He was heading to California to meet with the BJ's family. And he wasn't supposed to go on Tuesday. He was supposed to go on Monday. But he had obligations to Shakespeare and Company and another client, so he couldn't go on the day that he was supposed to go. I was the last person to speak with him that night, and I didn't talk to him very long because his wife, Judy Rotenberg, was in the car and he wanted to spend time with her. And I had found some very important papers that I wanted him to look at. And he had said to me, Rini, we'll do this on Wednesday when I come back. And I said, absolutely. I told him I loved him and I sent him hugs and kisses. And that was the end. Richard was this very, very special guy. He had 3 fabulous children, Franklin, Abigail, and Allison. Just to bring you up to date, Allison lives in Paris, has 3 gorgeous children. She's married to a fantastic fellow. She comes in every summer and spends the summers with us in Rockport. She's a joy. Her children are adorable and wonderful and handsome, and they speak French. So when they get upset with you, they go into French. They're wonderful. Franklin finally got married a year ago, August. Just celebrated his 1st anniversary. And he married a fantastic girl, Rachel Kay. And she's very special, and they're a great couple. Abigail is continuing to do all the great things that she does in the art world. And Judy, in June, had a wonderful show in Gloucester, at the Gloucester Museum, Cape Ann Museum. Her paintings are phenomenal. For any of you that know, it's Judy Rotenberg Ross. She's a fabulous, wonderful artist, and you should really look her up and see her paintings. I went to and I spoke the names this morning at the State House. And it's always very moving, and it's always a very difficult time because we don't have a lot of time to talk like I'm talking to you now. But everybody that was there, their hearts were full. They were torn apart because you can't forget this. This is history, and this is what happened to us, the United States of America. And it's a pity, a horrible, horrible thing. And you should really follow what's going on in Cuba, and there might be some resolution to the terrorists that are down there. Richard is missed. He's fabulous. One of the things that came out of today's events was that they talked about the first responders. Well, the first responders that actually were the first responders were the airline personnel on those planes. And they recorded so much that was done by the terrorists that we were able, as family members, to learn so much about what went on. There is a special award, the Amy Sweeney Award, that her family created, and they give it to somebody that has really done some phenomenal work to help other people be safe. So I hope I gave you a little bit of an update. I'm Kritza Krutzing. You'll see that I needed help from my responder because my left ankle's bothering me. So thank you very much. I wish you all good health, and we'll see you next year.
My daughter, Rahma Sali, She was 28, and her husband, Michael Theodoridis, and their unborn child. Rahma grew up in Japan and moved with her family to Newton. After graduating from Wellesley College, she worked for a company, Cambridge Technology Group. Rahma and her husband died on Flight 11 on their way to a wedding, a friend's wedding in California. Rahma was 7 months pregnant with their first child. We miss her dearly.
Amy E. Toyin, age 24. Amy was in the World Trade Center on 9/11 for a trade show when her fiancé Jeff received a phone call on her cell phone at 8:58 a.m. He saw Amy's caller ID, but then the call ended. Amy's father said, "We had just ordered her wedding dress." Amy was so happy in her life, a woman in love who loved her job.
City of Newton Fire Chaplain, the Reverend Mark Caggiano, will now give the benediction.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we have gathered to remember those we have lost to violence, lost to intolerance, lost to anger and hatred. Even after many years we gather and we remember. For as long as we do so, these men and women will remain in some way among us, lifted up in our memories, remembered again and again for who they were and what they meant to those left behind. Brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, husbands and wives, friends and loved ones. Lights that we look to in our memories, even through the darkness of that day. Even through the long shadows of those events cast across our nation and across our history. And we honor those who served in that time of crisis, to rescue those injured and trapped, to fight the fires, to search the wreckage, to keep the peace. Men and women who placed themselves in danger, men and women who may continue to suffer long after their time of service, men and women who lost their lives even as they sought to save others. As we call to mind those we have lost, as we honor their memories this day, may we also give thanks for the good memories, memories of them as family, as friends, as loved ones, memories of who they were and what they meant to this world. Let us remember them all for our entire lives, and may they be eternal in the mind of God. Amen.
This now concludes our ceremony. Thank you very much for coming and for remembering.